we have so many distractions in the world. We have our phones, we have our family, have our work and all that. So the thing is, how do we stay disciplined in today's world? Well, today's guest, Craig Ballantyne, he is also known as the world's most disciplined man, and he has the answer. So, Craig, thanks for joining us today.
This is gonna be a lot of fun, Jeff. Thank you.
So, so tell us, for people out there, they may or may not know you. Tell us a little bit about your background and kind of share how you kind of got into this world of discipline and productivity.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So I grew up on a farm in Canada, and you got to be pretty productive up, feeding the animals and stuff. I like to say that animals don't take a day off, so you got to figure out your systems to make sure that you show up every day. And from there, I went, fast forward a bunch of years. I ended up selling fitness programs on the internet for about 15 years, from about 2000 2015. Wrote for Men's Health magazine. Was really deep into the fitness scene, but also one of the first people to figure out how to use the World Wide Web, as they say, to get the message out, and then started doing a lot of video. And over that time, I ran a few businesses, and people would always say, "You're really productive. How the heck do you do all this?" And they made the leap. You're productive, therefore you're disciplined. And people started calling me, the world's most disciplined, which I'm not. I don't do ultra marathons or anything crazy like that.
Hmm.
But I'm very systematized because I'm not actually that disciplined at all naturally. I'm a
Hmm.
lazy person, like a lot of people, have the tendencies to be. But I knew I wanted more. I wanted to succeed in life. I wanted to achieve a lot of things. I wanted to write books. I wanted to build businesses and give my family, generational wealth. And so what I did was I built systems that allowed me no other choice but to make the right choices, and that set me up for success automatically. And it helped me overcome. I had severe anxiety attacks. It helped me. My systems helped me overcome that. I was a binge drinker. It helped me overcome that. I was addicted to video games and Netflix and all that type of stuff at one point, and my systems helped me overcome that. So for anybody listening, there are a lot of distractions in the world, as you mentioned, from the phone to Netflix. There's a lot of vices that can really drag us down. And when you have systems in place, you don't have to rely on white knuckling willpower or discipline, that grit your teeth, I got to suffer, and, life really kind of sucks. We don't need that. You actually can have an amazing life. You can get amazing results. I know a couple of guys like you. We were talking about Dr. Vikram Raya just before we started. I mean, that guy doesn't suffer in life, and he has, he didn't make sacrifices. That's different
Hmm.
than suffering, but he has a lot, and he uses systems.
So, when people ask me, Jeff, how did you get into real estate? For me, about 10 years ago, we were snow skiing, hurt my hand. That was like the moment, like the switch. Like, if I can't use my hands and treat patients, I'm screwed. Can't
Mhm.
provide for my family. So, with you, was there some sort of moment that back in your life that you can think about, or was it more like kind of a gradual change that got you to where to really start focusing on discipline, that sort of thing?
Yeah, that is a good question. So 2006, New Year's Day, I woke up with a crazy hangover, binge drinking several days in a row, and I ended up having my first of a couple of severe anxiety attacks. And my heart was pounding. My chest was tight. I couldn't breathe. I had tingling from the top of my head down to the end of my fingertips. And I have a master's degree in exercise physiology, and I took a cardiovascular, several cardiovascular advanced classes. I watched an open heart surgery, and I thought, I'm going down. That's exactly what was going through my mind for the next 11 hours as I walked and paced my apartment. So I went to the emergency room that night at 11 o'clock, and I walked in. And I know there's probably a lot of doctors listening, but I always like to tell this like inside ER secret, right? So if you go into the ER as a patient and you want to get to the front, and maybe flashing your doctor card doesn't do that. If you just go up and you tell them you're having a heart attack, so even if you have like a sprained ankle or something, just tell them you have a heart attack, because they took me right to the back when I said that to the person at the admissions. And this ended up realizing I'm not having a heart attack, and so this nurse kind of massaged my head and patted me on the back, and they kicked me out after a couple hours. But I felt better because I was able to tell somebody. And then I woke up a couple days later, and I was like, I see what I'm doing to myself here. Not just the binge drinking and the hypocritical life, from being a personal trainer, but I would wake up and I would go right to my phone, and this is in the day of the BlackBerry. So I'd wake up and I'd wake up late. Late for myself was 7:30 in the morning because I'm a morning person. I like doing stuff in the morning. So I already felt behind and I felt anxious. And then I, checked my BlackBerry, and then, I'd get one negative message from something I put out on the internet. And, the next 3 hours, my brain is thinking of comebacks, snappy comebacks to send to somebody, which I never did, fortunately. And I realized something has to change. And so I made a decision right there that my life is going to change 5 minutes at a time. And so I got up 5 minutes earlier for the next 7 days, and I waited 5 minutes longer to check my phone. So I actually, I guess it was 10 minutes at a time.
Hmm.
And over the next 6 months, I went from 7:30 a.m. wake up to 5:30 a.m. wake up. Now, notice what I didn't do. I didn't go from 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 in one day, because that's a recipe for disaster. That's like, somebody who's 40 pounds overweight and starts, running 10 miles a day. It's not going to last. And
How did you come up with that formula? Did you hear it from somewhere, or did you
I
just
just
make it up
figured
on your
I
own?
just figured, like, what am I capable of doing?
Yeah.
I'm in these bad habits. Like,
Hmm.
let's at least get up 5 minutes earlier, and let's wait 5 minutes longer. And in that window, you can actually do a lot. So I knew that you could actually do a lot in a short
Hmm.
amount of time, because I was originally a personal trainer before I started my online business. And I lived in Toronto, and I took the bus downtown to the wealthiest part of Toronto, and I trained Canada's richest men and women, like literally the richest man in Canada. It was one of my clients for a while, and so I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be someone's towel boy. No offense to personal trainers, but that's, kind of what you are. And I decided I'm going to get up earlier. I'm going to get up at 4:30 in the morning and work for 15 minutes on my online business. And in 18 months, I was able to quit my personal training job and just do online fitness programming. So I knew what you could get done in 15 minutes. So, I figured 10 minutes will also be helpful. And that was the day that it started, was, early January 2006. And I'm
Well, did you
always
have a family back then and all that, or?
no, I'm a late dad. So I'm late getting married, like in my 40s, and having, we have 3 kids under 3, and I'm 49. So, I
Whoa,
was,
bless
yeah,
you.
yeah. Yeah, I've been up for it's 8 o'clock in the morning. I've been up since 12:30 last night, and it's a rough one last night. But as I say in the discipline book, you got to put a level 10 effort into your level 10 problem. And my kids are my level 10 um, opportunity and responsibility, so I give them the level 10 effort,
Yeah.
and that's discipline. So so that was the thing that changed probably for me, because then I started, because that was this first system I think that I put in place. And I also recognize that, I'm more productive in the morning, so I need to open up that time. And so, one of the things that I teach in one of my other books, Perfect Week Formula, is to identify the time of day when you're 3 times more creative, productive, and energetic. And I call that magic time. And everybody's got that time. And then make sure that you are blocking that time for your hardest task. Now, what most people do is they kind of have an idea in the day when they get into a flow. They're like, man, at 2 o'clock today, I was in the flow, and I usually am. But they give that time away to meetings, to emails. And of course, a lot of doctors can't control every single day with patients and stuff like that. But if you can even get one day per week where your magic time is devoted to your highest intensity task, your most, brain draining task, you're going to make big progress on it. And you have to,
Hmm.
just like, our kids have the little container with the shapes, the circles and the squares, and they have the shape, and they have to put the square peg in the square hole. And that's what we're doing here as adults is, our magic time is the square hole, and we want to insert the square peg, which is the hardest task, inside of that. And that's how you compound your productivity. So even if you don't have a lot of time, 15 minutes of that is much more effective than 2 hours, in a time of the day when you're brain drained, because I used to try and work at 8 o'clock at night after a full day, 12-hour day in the gym training people. It's not going to happen. You have to get up earlier and get at it.
Hmm. Well, so let's talk a little bit about. I know you have several books, but let's talk about your newest one. I
Yeah.
really like the title.
Thank you.
The the darks. Most people say you got to be disciplined. Discipline's
Right.
everything, but you're talking about the dark side of discipline. So what's like the main We'll get into it, but like
Sure.
what's the overall main problem it helps people solve?
So a lot of people are going too far with the discipline. So discipline was my savior when I was a binge drinker, when I
Hmm.
had it to overcome my anxiety, when I had to overcome my introverted tendencies. And so discipline is a savior to a point, and then you can take it too far. And there's a very fine line that once you cross it, discipline goes from your savior to you becoming a servant of discipline. And I see this all the time in people that are doing online workout challenges, or they're cold plunging, or they're putting good things like working out is good, but not if you're doing it 2 times a day and your family is suffering, or
Mm,
not if you're doing it 2 times a day and you can't make any time to do real estate deals or write the book that you always wanted to write. So
mhm,
you're letting the good get in the way of the great. And that's the dark side of discipline. It's not that you're binge watching Netflix while eating a bag of potato chips and drinking, Jack Daniels. That's bad, but you're doing good things, and it's actually stopping you from achieving great things. And if you take it too far, even further than that, as some of my friends did, they went and they sacrificed their families, and they lost, their wives and access to their kids, because they became so obsessed with becoming disciplined and impressing people on the internet with stuff they would post on their social media. And then they spent the rest of their time obsessed with their business, that they neglected their family. And it's like keeping up with the Joneses in the 21st century. It's no longer about the stuff that you have, it's about the cool things that you can post on Instagram. And you see somebody do a cold plunge for 3 minutes, well, I'm going to do it for 4.5 minutes, and it's like it becomes this weird race to the bottom that
yeah.
actually can destroy people's lives. And so that's the dark side when it takes
Hmm.
you too far.
So, and I know part of the book it said, I mean, you were saying that you don't need, or you don't recommend people need to get more done. You need to do like focus on the right thing. So if somebody that's like has work, has kids, they're married, they're coaching their kids, or maybe they're wanting to try to work out, they got all this stuff they're trying to focus on. And you're saying like focus on the right things. Well,
Hmm.
for somebody like that, that's kind of all over the place, which I used to be, which sometimes I still am now. What can you give me like a framework, or give them like a framework, or maybe like what that daily routine should look like?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And so we need to expand it to your weekly routine. And
Weekly.
this is where,
Okay.
communication with the spouse is so important. And we have to, first of all, we have to plan out the week. We have to put the most important things on the calendar first. Then we have to plan that around work as well. And then what we've done is we've squeezed out all the excess. And then what we need to do is we need to take a look at our screen time. So everybody's phone will have an area where you can find how much time you spend on your phone,
Hmm.
and you need to do a deep dive on that, and take a hard look in the mirror. And in most cases, it'll show that somebody's on their phone for 4 hours, and you'll be like, "How on earth am I on my phone for 4 hours?" And it'll break it down by category. And what we can do there is we can start saying, "Okay, my goal is to get this down to 90 minutes." And when we do that, we're going to open up more time, talk to our spouses and spend time with our kids and be present
Is
with
that
them.
what you recommend? 90 minutes or less?
Yeah, in most cases, because
Okay.
this is what we found with our group of entrepreneurs, is that most people are around 4 hours. And when they get to 90 minutes, they get a lot of time back, and they don't feel like they've missed out on something.
What would you say to like because I have a 20 and an 18-year old, so like
Mhm.
kids, teenagers, that sort of thing. Does that apply to them as well?
Probably. I mean,
Okay.
my goodness. I mean, one of the things that is definitely contributing to the anxiety rise in kids today is the comparison syndrome of
Hmm.
social media. So those are generalities, but I think what the most important thing to do is to sit down and look at the screen time, and it is broken down by categories. So it'll be email, it'll be social media, and that can be broken down so that one thing is going to be an outlier, right? It might
Hmm.
be like TikTok use is huge or YouTube use is huge. And then it's like, okay, well, let's start setting goals specifically around this, because you don't spend much time in email. You don't spend much time on, these apps or these apps, but this one, it's 80-20 rule. I'm a big fan of the 80-20 rule, that 80% of your problems come from 20% of your issues,
Hmm.
and 80% of your success comes from 20% of the things that you do. So there's a vital few, and there's a vital few on the good side. There's a vital few on the bad side. And I talk about this in the book, that discipline really comes from subtraction. That if most people are doing a lot of good things, they don't need to go and add more. They don't need to go and add or infrared sauna and add green juice and add, you're only going to get a little bit of extra edge from that. But if you take a look at the real ball and chain in your life, what is it? Is it 2 or 3 glasses of wine a night? Is it, you just cannot stop at one show of Netflix? Is it pornography, which, is a dirty word, and, but it's a big problem in this world. And, people that are addicted to that, it shines through in everything in your life. And it could be, around your weight, it could be around eating issues. If you can just get rid of that one albatross or that monkey on your back, you don't have to add anything good to your life. You'll just be going so much faster. It's like taking a race car, spinning their wheels in the mud. You get rid of that one bad habit, you put it on the racetrack, you're going to go 200 miles an hour without adding anything. So we are, when I go to help somebody, I look at the things that are destroying them first and aim to remove that before I even think about adding anything to their life.
So let's use a scenario. I'm just kind of
Hmm.
thinking here. Let's say a physician comes to you, a dentist comes to you, somebody that works a lot. They're married, maybe they're in their 40s. They've got a couple of kids. They're busy, and but because been busy, and their health has started to kind of go
Hmm.
down. Maybe they've gained 20, 25 pounds extra. So
Yeah.
somebody like that that's listening, that wants to improve their health, where do you kind of recommend that they start the process of, maybe like you said, not adding all these different, you need to do this and that, maybe you need to start subtracting stuff.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I would look at, I'd say, hey, can you give me a couple of days on like My Fitness Pal or something like that? There's a lot of apps out there. Just tell me what you're eating over a couple of days.
So you
A
start
couple.
with the eating.
Oh yeah, because I mean, you want to talk about 80/20? I mean, 80% of your results in weight loss, fat loss, and in your overall health come from nutrition.
Hmm.
I made my living selling workout programs. I wasn't a nutrition expert, but I always was the first person in the room to admit that you can't out exercise a bad diet. In fact, I have this goofy YouTube video from 2009 where I run on a treadmill at the fastest pace that I can while a friend of mine stands in front of the video camera and eats pizza and soda. And so in 4 minutes, he consumes 1,600 calories of pizza and soda. And I was able to burn 46 calories, running very hard, 16 calories a minute, or thereabouts. And like, you cannot out exercise bad diet.
Hmm.
Like, if you change nothing else in your life, it's the nutrition. So we take a look at the nutrition, and it's like we look for the diet bombs. Like, what are the things that are really compounding? Because
Like the
most people know what.
weekends or something like that. They're going out
Yeah, I
there.
mean, it's probably going to be liquid calories,
Yeah.
and most people overlook that. So liquid calories are a big thing because they don't give you any fullness. So
Hmm.
there's really, you're probably just getting some sweetness or something. Obviously, I'm not a huge fan of like aspartame and stuff, but there's a lot of other ways to get sweetness in your liquids if you absolutely need it, but preferably moving away from that. And then, it's added sugar and added fat. Like, I'm from Canada. When I go to America and I look at tomato sauce, why you guys got to put so much sugar in a tomato sauce? Like, it's unbelievable. In fact, to give you guys a break, I cannot believe anybody in America is not obese. Like, the articles are always like 60% of Americans are overweight or obese.
Yeah.
Look at every single billboard and every single commercial that comes on TV, and how anybody stays not obese in America is like a miracle, right? Like, it just feels like I got to go to Papa John's every time I cross the border. It's like they've managed to, stuff another pizza inside the pizza. And
Yeah. I'm thinking back on my diet, because now my kids are starting to get old enough to where I can remember what I used to eat. And now,
right,
I'm, if I ate even 50% of what I used to eat, now it's just like more whole foods, a lot of eggs,
right,
salads, grilled stuff. But, I would eat a 14-inch pizza in high school. It was just like no problem. And
right.
it's just like, man, if I
Those,
did that now, I,
those
I
days
couldn't
are
get my
gone.
ring off. I would be all swollen and,
Right.
in pain. And I'm like, man.
Right. And nutrition is really, really powerful. And so we'd start there first.
Okay.
And then what we do is I have this phrase: if you want to be a millionaire, you have to live like a billionaire. And so it's counterintuitive, right? And I like to do counterintuitive, contrarian thinking. And so what this means is, if a billionaire was overweight, what would he do? What would he do here? Well, he would hire a personal chef.
Yeah.
And it's actually not that expensive to hire a personal chef to go and buy the groceries. You give them money to buy the groceries. They come to your house, or they do the cooking at their house, and they, give you those container meals. Now you can do that, or you can go to one of the many uh, um, services that provide it. There's nutrisolutions.com is one. There's Icon Meals is another. I know the guy that runs that, Todd Abrams out of Dallas.
I
You know,
eat those.
yeah, right. So you get those things delivered so that you don't have to think about it, right? Because the problem that most people have is that they don't have the education. And listen, like there's so much stuff out there about nutrition, it can make your head spin. And you don't need that when you've already got, your kids and your marriage and your practice, et cetera. So you need to keep things as simple as possible. And you need, and the portion control of America is also, wild. For anybody that's traveled outside of America, when you come back to America, it's like, oh yeah, these meals we have here are pretty darn big compared to what I had in France. And so you get that portion control with those meals that are done for you. But if you live like a billionaire, you can have it customized even more for about $700 a week. So this is, and this is after the person has bought the groceries. So this includes the groceries and the person doing this. And we've had clients who live in the middle of nowhere, South Carolina, find somebody on Craigslist willing to do it either in their house or at their house and bring the meals over. And this person is a very, very picky this client of mine is very picky, has very strict diet requirements, and she loves this meal prep service that she found once I told her to live like a billionaire
Hmm.
because she makes seven figures personal income. She can afford $700 a week, and she
Right.
got back 10 hours of her time that she was spending making meals.
Hmm.
So you're buying back your time, and Vic talks a lot about this in his content because buying back your time is something that you have to do if we go back to one of your original questions. Somebody doesn't have the time, what do they start to do? Well, aside from planning, it's make a list of all the things you just don't want to do anymore, from cutting lawn, going to the grocery store, cooking all the meals, doing all the laundry. You can find services, I forget what the name of the one laundry thing is, but it's like 10 pounds for $1 and they pick it up at your house. And or it's or is it $10 per pound? It's like crazy amount of it's super cheap for these laundry services that are nationwide. You just put a bag out, they do your laundry and comes back. And there's a lot of people doing a lot of chores that, you just weren't put here on this earth to do that sort of stuff. And there's in this gig economy, there's people out there who do all that sort of stuff. And like, even with the live like a billionaire, like I don't even drive anywhere. I Uber everywhere. Like,
Huh.
like Mayor Bloomberg used to do back in the 90s, right? Like now there's a personal driver available for all of us. So why I live in Vancouver, the traffic's not bad here, but finding, we got a SUV and finding parking, like why don't I just get an Uber? I can work in the back. Um, I save all that time and then I get there, I don't have to park and I can, come and go as I want. So just like a billionaire used to do in the 90s. And
Yeah.
when you flip that in your head and you start buying back your time and getting rid of the stuff you don't like, first of all, you don't lose the mental energy of like, oh man, I got to go and do that. But you also get the time back. And that's another thing to just think differently about this. And that's how you would conquer both of those.
Speaking of thinking, I think for myself, when I had to like unlearn a lot of the stuff that I had kind of been around, like my parents and
Sure.
people, like investing or whatever. But so,
Yeah.
like for instance, about when you say buying back your time, this recently came up. It was always ingrained. Always find the cheapest thing, do stuff yourself, wash your own car, mow your own lawn, all that. Well, this was a few months ago. My dad was like, "Hey, he was talking about gas." He's like, "Yeah, I saved like 15
Oh
cents
yeah.
a gallon."
I drove
Sam,
across town to save 15
and
cents.
I was like, "Okay, well, let's think about this. How many gallons did you get?" And he was like, "I think it was like 20 gallons," and it takes him, probably by the time he goes to Sam's, fills up, and comes back, it's like 30 minutes, and it's like, okay, you saved like what, $2, $3, and when I put it in that perspective out loud, he didn't say anything because maybe he was a little embarrassed, but it was like, but that was the kind of the thinking. It was like, oh, I'm saving 15 cents. It's not, 250 a gallon. It's 230. Yeah, I got to win, but it's like in the grand scheme of things. And then it was really hard for me because I had a lawn service from the time I was 12
Uh-huh.
until I went to dental school. And I was to the point I was mowing like 40 lawns a week. And for the first 15 years when I got back, I'm mowing my own lawn every week, and I like doing it and healthy and all that. But now that we have a much bigger yard, it's like it
Yeah.
would, the service that comes to do it now, those guys get out and they can do it in 45 minutes. I tried it initially. It was like almost 3 hours. And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, it's just, that
You know,
was the thing. It was like, it's just not worth it.
my mom's 82 and has a large lawn, an acre, and she gets her 86-year-old brother to cut it. I mean, you just cannot get her to, and she's fortunate.
But my
She
point
inherited.
is, we
Yeah,
have to think about why are we doing what we're doing? Like
yeah,
whether it's what
absolutely,
we're eating, whether it's what we're spending money on, investing. Is it because of, oh, that's what I've always done? So I think people need to really think about that, because
absolutely.
I can have a call with a guy who's, recently a guy was burning out. He was a dentist. He was like in his 40s. I can't do this for another 20 years. And, I really want to get into real estate and passive income. And he went through the whole spiel.
Yeah,
I said, okay. Well, so I said, well, typically the deals that you're wanting to get in is around 50 to $100,000 a deal. He's like, man, I just don't know if I could do that after I max out my 401k and this and that. I was like, wait a minute. You just told me you wanted freedom, yet you're investing in something you can't touch until you're sick. It was so ingrained in him until he verbalized it. Go,
mhm.
man, you're right. So you have to kind of think about that. So do you run into that with people with regarding their routines and stuff?
Absolutely, and especially when we're working with female entrepreneurs, because I kind of like it because female entrepreneurs, they just let their mother-in-laws dictate, what they're able to do. Like, oh my goodness, I can't let my mother-in-law find out that I have a meal prep service. And eventually we get them over that. But,
Hmm.
one of the lines that I use, and I used it briefly, was you were not put here on this earth to do this. Like, I'm not saying like you're better than a person who does meal prep service. I'm just saying like you, with the talents and the skill sets that you've acquired over your life as a doctor or a dentist, you've developed this incredible skill set. You've developed incredible experiences, and you were put here on this earth to either go and spread your message or to take that wealth and multiply it. You were not put here on this earth to do your laundry, to cut your lawn, to do the meal prep. And in fact, no offense, but you're probably not even that good at it. That's the other thing I like to say to the
Yeah.
entrepreneurs. A lot of them are editing their own videos and doing their own bookkeeping. And I'm like, if I hired you to do either of those things in my business, how long would you last? 2 hours before I found out you were horrible at it.
Hmm.
And yet you're doing it for the most important business on this earth to you, which is your own. And usually that gets them to flip the switch in their head, and they're like, oh yeah, I can't believe I'm doing this. And they go and find somebody for 12 bucks an hour on upwork.com or Fiverr, and they get one thing off their plate.
So if somebody listen to this and are like, okay, y'all have motivated me, y'all have inspired me, I need to get my time and energy, get going right place. Where do you recommend they start with you?
Yeah, so I got a couple of books. I got a brand new one out called The Dark Side of Discipline. So if you go to darksideofdiscipline.com, that'll help you, really figure out what's important in your life and build a plan to attack it and
Hmm.
achieve success with it. And then I have another book called Perfect Week Formula. So if you go to freeperfectweekformula.com, that one is the best time management book you'll ever find, and
Free
it'll help you
perfect
plan
week,
it out.
free perfect week formula.
Yeah, freeperfectweekformula.com.
We'll make sure we put those links below, and the other one was darksideofdiscipline.com.
Yeah, and they're both on Amazon,
Okay,
as well, for the
perfect.
audiobooks and stuff like that.
And as far as, do you, if somebody reads either one, excuse me, either one of those and wants to go further, do you offer like any coaching, or what are
Yeah,
what are some of the services you
yeah,
do?
we do one-on-one coaching with entrepreneurs. We do have doctors and dentists. I worked with
Hmm.
Vikram Rhea, that you mentioned before, and so they can email me, Craig@CraigBallantyne.com, or if you use Instagram, I respond there. Real Craig Ballantyne on Instagram.
Perfect, Craig. This was great, and good luck on your book, and we'll make sure try to get it in as many hands as we can.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.